Welcome to MOTS, where we'll be applying the Manzer or mostly Thurlow skill of quantitative analysis of pop culture narrative through a binary system.
MOTS!
This podcast contains spoilers, mature content, and language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, welcome back to MOTS, and this is my podcast, everybody. So glad to have you here. I, of course, am Scott Thurlow, here with Rich Perry.
That's a good Tommy.
Janie Manzer.
Error. Room at library. Reference library not found.
And Stephen Amosi.
Hey, how you guys doing?
And as you may have gathered, we just did The Room, and now we have just seen and going to discuss Disaster Artist, the new James Franco joint, in which he portrays a perhaps closely based on a true story, that is, what actually happened in the making of The Room and the famous circumstances surrounding it. So, I don't know if we have a funny logline. Does anybody have one? I don't know if we came up with a good one.
This movie's a funny logline.
Yeah, we'll go with that. And then we're going to also go to E for the intro body conclusion.
So this is a movie about a movie. If you don't know what The Room is, then this movie isn't for you. It's for the fans of The Room to explore more about the behind the scenes and the people who created it. Really, though, if you go in trying to understand who Tommy Wiseau is, you're not going to get that answer. I came out of this movie with just as much knowledge about Tommy Wiseau as I came into this movie with.
I feel like I came out with less, as I said to you guys. I said the cast. So, it's not a biopic, I guess, by any means. It's like the making of The Room.
If it is a biopic, it's about Greg, and it's following his story as a struggling actor who's trying to get work.
Yeah.
He meets his imaginary friend, Tommy Wiseau, who is this...
Who gives him the confidence to do so, I guess. Who may be a vampire. We'll talk about that in themes. Yeah. But who decides to make a movie. He's not making it in Hollywood. He has unimaginable wealth. Mysterious bankroll somehow.
And decides to make The Room.
His wealth is only exceeded by his confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just watching the whole story unfold. And that's like... It follows Greg. And unfortunately, Greg is not as interesting of a character as Tommy Wiseau is.
I'll agree with that.
But we follow Greg. And then ends with the premiere of The Room, and Tommy Wiseau at first hurt that everyone's laughing at his film, but gaining the idea that it was a comedy all along. It seems like a man who could tell himself any story and he'll believe it.
Clearly, yeah.
I'm really torn about this because there are moments where it's funny. There are moments that are sheer fan service to people who enjoy The Room. Again, I don't think if you haven't seen The Room,
you're definitely not going to get as much out of this at all, for sure.
And Greg is an uninteresting character. So I think it's the strongest towards the end of this, especially in... It's based on a novel he wrote about his experience there.
Sure.
So it feels like he's both distancing himself from The Room and also trying to honor his fictional friend, Tommy Wiseau. But he doesn't get him either. It's a weird kind of...
Yeah, I see what you mean, for sure. I know what you're getting at.
I don't know what this movie is supposed to do.
Well, maybe let's save a theme. Do you have an idea of what you're giving it? Conclusion?
I don't know what the narrative is supposed to be of this. Is it just the telling of the making of the movie? I have an idea, but go ahead, Steve-O.
Yeah, I don't know what deeper thing you're looking for it to do, other than tell the story of these two. It's based off of the book that Greg wrote, the real Greg wrote about his friendship with Tommy Wiseau, and it shows the arc of them going from acting class to making a movie. That's what the movie's supposed to do, I think.
I don't know. It didn't... here's the thing is, again, you said it's the arc of them. No, it's the arc of Greg, which, again, as I said, it's him distancing himself from the movie, so it seems like a making him this, again, through his own self-image there, this, like, honorable friend character, and Tommy never has any. He has as much death as Johnny does in the room. Like,
that's kind of the point.
Is it the point?
I don't know. But here's the thing. So I think I mentioned to you or all of you right outside, right when we left the film, I said it felt like an almost sort of redemption-ish tale, where like, yeah, like. Here's the story of the making of this now infamously bad film that people like ironically like to enjoy, and certainly like if you are one of the people who like go to the midnight showings of it, you'll enjoy this movie because it's again, some of it was outright fan service, to be sure. But I think it's more like, yeah, like, hey, you guys want to know more about this, and it seems like an interesting story with an interesting possible fictional, although clearly real person in the guise of Tommy Wiseau.
I feel like it humanized the movie and its actors. Well, except for Tommy.
yeah, to an extent. So, like, I think if we're going scores, I might give it a solid 2. I don't think it deserves a 3, but like, I think that is all it's trying to do. Like, hey, you want to know more about the room? You won't get any more information about Tommy as a person per se, but you know, here's the journey of it, and it was, you know, kind of fun and funny at times, and it was just a strange friendship that formed, and out of that, we got this movie from it. So. That's pretty much all I can say.
I mean, I liked the movie. Sounds like the best of everybody.
You also like The Room the best of everybody?
Probably, but I'm going to give this a higher score than I gave The Room.
Sure.
I think that this film does explore a lot of the intricacies of Tommy and Greg's relationship, and Tommy himself, like... Rich, as soon as we left the theater, you were saying that you almost had to walk out at the end because you felt so bad for him as a person. Like, is that not like his humanity on display there? Like,
sure. It is.
I don't view it in the same way that you guys are talking about it. And I don't see where you're coming from on these things when you say that Tommy has no dimension or is the same.
I didn't say that.
No. Ian said that. Or is the same as, you know, Johnny in The Room. I don't see it in this film at all. I don't see that angle, I suppose.
Actually, now that you mention it, the lingering shots they did on him after Greg, or outside of what Greg was doing, kind of, but then at the same time, like, I don't know, he had those moments of vulnerability and humanization, but then he would just bury them.
Yeah.
And turn back into Tommy Wiseau.
That's what that person is like in real life.
Allegedly, so it seems, right? I guess.
Yeah.
See, I'm not willing to. I don't know Tommy Wiseau. I'm not going to project like out of this story, and this is maybe I was sold on this story as being an exploration of Tommy Wiseau's character, and that
it's not quite that.
Right.
At anything, it's only through Greg's perspective, and even at that, I think that Greg is an unreliable narrator when it comes to both himself in this movie and Tommy Wiseau, because the purpose of this is to make both of them look good.
I get it.
On the only thing that of worth they have created in their life. Now, granted, like they should enjoy their success, but I feel that. I don't think there was. I think there was more merit to The Room than there was to The Disaster Artist.
All right.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna give it a 3.
All right. I'm going with a solid 2, but not a 3.
Going with 3.
All right.
I'm going with a 1 for the ending of the movie. As I said, there was the part that felt real to me, even though I still think that I don't know. I'm done with that. It's just
give it a 1, and that's mostly why.
Okay.
Well, let's move on to themes with you, Steve-O.
All right. Well, this movie explores a couple different themes. Obviously, trying to make it in Hollywood is a big one. Where Tommy Wiseau is kind of the benefactor of Greg, somebody who just met in art school and who really wants to become better as an actor and try to make it in movies. And Tommy gives him an outlet for that. And, they kind of, look at that, Tommy's a really strange character, obviously, in this, and kind of drives a wedge between Greg and like his social life, his girlfriend. Exploring their friendship in terms of that was, I think, an interesting part of it. Oh.
You can go on.
No, I can't. You gotta fix that before I go on.
Sorry,
You're
go
making
ahead.
a lot of noise.
Go
All
ahead.
right.
My bad. Interrupting you with production troubles. So go on with themes.
But anyway, I think that it talks a lot about who they are as friends, and you're right. Like, it does only show Tommy from Greg's point of view, but that's because we don't have Tommy's point of view, and especially insofar as he, as a human being, as a person, is so weirdly like doesn't want to talk about his own personal life. Not weird for that thing, but weird in the way that he doesn't want to talk about his personal life. Like, he refuses to say where he's from, or, you know,
how old he is,
what he did before he started making movies, or how old he is, those types of things. So I think that's kind of a little bit of a theme too, an exploration of like what about him makes him interesting as a person, and like trying to see it from the point of view from, like, I guess the closest person to him, that at least as far as Greg knows, you know, the closest person that
Sure.
he's ever, closest friend that he's had, at least since they've met, and he's still like a mystery to this guy, even though they, you know, are supposedly pretty close. So I don't know if you guys have other.
No, not much
thoughts?
more like the Hollywood thing. You're right. Yeah, I was going to go with like exploring a strange friendship that somehow like resulted in a strange movie being made and being like a cult phenomenon. You know, right? Like it is all through Greg's perspective for sure. So we'll probably talk about that in Antagonist in a second. But yeah, like what we know what we know, right? I guess, and that's what his experience was and portrayed as such. So like, yeah, I think it does a fine job. You're right. It's not trying to really say anything else about anything greater. I don't think I didn't see anything with that. It's just like, here's like a, you know, sort of a quirky, weird story, and based out of, again, coming out from a recent-ish movie that people have turned into like cult status. So, and exploring the relationship of the two people who closest to making it, the ones responsible for you know, producing it. So that's all.
One of the realer aspects of Tommy that I got in this, to build off of your point, Stephen, is his, and I think this is actually based off of, again, like real events, is kind of upset, the villain versus the hero. That everyone looks at him and sees the ogre, sees the vampire, sees the Frankenstein monster, and he wants to be the hero of the story. And I'm quite certain, I haven't read the book, but I'm quite certain that those are that felt very like honest to me, and makes a lot of sense for what little we know about the Tommy Wiseau character, and as his motivation in life.
And I would say it makes sense at the same time for Johnny in the room, like that character, you know.
Oh yeah, he would
he was
create himself as the tragic hero, certainly. And yeah, so I might give this. Again, the Hollywood things, all that. I'm going to give it a softer one, but still one.
All right. You think, Rich?
1.
And Steve, are you giving it a 1 too?
Giving it a 1 as well,
I'm, like I said, I'm giving it a solid, if not soft 1. Like I said, it was all fine. Just things you guys said. Well, that will bring me with Antagonist. Tommy Wiseau. like, not really though. Like, of course I said in jest. The Hollywood system, like trying to break through that. Should we call it that? Like meeting a strange dude in a class and then having him turn out that he has a very bizarre existence, but you befriend him anyways. Like,
it's a very specific antagonist.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, no one's really antagonized, but like, sure, Greg and Tommy, as portrayed by Franco, like got into, you know, disagreements with each other throughout the production and so forth, and just as people, as friends. But still, like, I don't think the thing that Greg I felt antagonized the most was trying to make it as an actor. Was one of the whole big reasons he even, you know, they went through with making their own indie movie, if you will.
And Tommy got hit with a very large dose of that.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. Like, there's not too much else there. I don't think there's any person within the film at all you can call antagonist. I think it's just trying to be yourself, and maybe, like he said, I do like what he said. Tommy realizes everyone seems to see him as some kind of villain.
Yeah.
Maybe he just has a face for it or whatever. Somebody says something like that. but like, trying to be who you think you are, presented to a public face that views you completely the opposite, it seems.
Yeah, but trying to become the hero, he went down the path of villainy.
Yeah, perhaps
Literally
ironically.
called himself a dictator.
Yeah,
Well,
that's true.
That's what happens. You live long enough, you get to see yourself become the villain.
Yep. You're the die hero. You're the make a movie hero. But anyway, so I mean, I think that was fine. Like, I might give it like a default 0. Like, I don't know. Like, it wasn't too antagonistic per se. It's just like life again. If you want to go like the most broad abstract thing possible, specifically the life of trying to be a struggling actor, I suppose,
Yeah.
or a movie breaker.
So I'm going to jump ahead for a second
Okay.
to the protagonist aspect of it. So, depending on who you want to say is the protagonist, Greg, yeah, if you have him, and certainly he's the protagonist of this thing, generally, yeah, it's tough being an actor, but what you saw is he has it pretty good.
That's true. His life was alright. He wasn't starving or anything per se because he befriended a mysteriously wealthy benefactor.
But even that, like, he goes to a bar.
Meets a girl.
It seems like the first time he goes to that bar, there's a thing that they've seen each other before, but she gets him a meeting with Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
It's like the one thing that's upsetting you in your life is knowing Tommy Wiseau.
It's causing the most drama.
It's yeah.
Sure. I mean, that's really funny. That's a good point.
And if Tommy Wiseau's a protagonist, which I don't know if he is,
I think he's an ascendant extra.
Yeah,
go with the trope
he plays
joke.
he plays a different role than that. Like, he has the world against him, very much versus Greg, and so I'm only going to do Greg. I'm going to have to give it a 0 because I don't.
Fair.
I don't think he's antagonized very much by anything.
I'm sort of mostly going to do the same. Like, I was somewhat on the fence about it, so I think you might have convinced me with that. But if anyone else has anything,
well, let me go back. I haven't talked to antagonist yet, so let's go back to that for a second.
Yeah.
Antagonist is definitely getting a 0 for me. If we're including protagonist here, or are we waiting?
We're waiting. I just wanted to frame my antagonist.
Sure.
I needed.
Yeah. There's not a strong antagonist in any way in this movie. It's not that type of movie.
So, like I said, maybe a default kind of one.
Yeah.
Life.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. Like,
Yeah.
to really get down to it, that's going to always be the case. Like,
That's not going to convince me this time, fellas.
yeah, fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any real strong argument to be had for any real antagonist. There's, they have their share of disagreements and things like that, but nothing is strongly antagonizing any of these characters except for trying to finish the movie, I guess. But, that's not enough for me, I don't think.
0.
All right. Any other thoughts on antagonist?
Mm-mm.
All right, so speaking of, we'll transition to protagonist, and that's going to be you, Rich.
Protagonist is Greg. And the reason I think it's not Tommy is because, like I said before, he's pretty much the manic pixie dream girl of Greg's life. Like, he comes in, like, his entrance into the film, into Greg's life is like a whirlwind. Coming on stage, throwing things, and
True.
slightly frightening the audience. And then immediately going, let's move to Los Angeles
Together.
to get.
I have an apartment. What? You do? Yeah.
It's like, how do you have a Mercedes? Don't ask me questions about my life.
Yeah.
And then you see Greg's hero's journey, basically.
You know what's funny? I'm sorry. I'm 1 second. If I didn't know anything about this movie coming in, I would have fully expected a horror movie after the first 10 minutes. But he just gets in a car with the guy he just met and is like, "Yeah, I got an apartment in LA. Come with me." I would expect him to get murdered.
That's what the mother thought.
Yeah, exactly.
She was certainly unnerved by
You
that.
don't want to sleep in the same bed as me?
Yeah, I'm only joking.
Just joking.
But yeah, I mean, that is funny point, Steve. I see that.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I mean, I agree that Greg is the clear protagonist. And like you said, like, this is the story from his eyes, a la the book version, if you will. Like, it was his experience, so we view it as such as the audience. And he was fine. Like, I may have given him like a default 1 in this instance. Dave Franco, I think, does a good job. But James is certainly like the standout, I think, as playing such a... He gets, it's kind of unfair that he's playing such a apparently bizarre person who is just as weird, strange as they are in real life as he's portraying them as. But I think, I don't know if Greg had a hero's journey. He certainly had a journey. And I think he grew and at least learned something from it. So, you know what? Maybe this is for themes, but I'll say it here. The whole movie, like, 70% of it, right, Greg's like doubting himself, and Tommy's like, just be yourself, Greg. Just act your heart out. You know, emotions. He's like telling him to do a scene in like the middle of a crowded restaurant, like as if no one's there. All this stuff. He's giving him basically pep talks. Then at the very end, at the premiere of The Room, when Greg sees that Tommy is upset that people are laughing at the film, Greg has to then give him a pep talk, like, hey, look, I understand you didn't want it to be this way, but people are enjoying your movie. They're having a good time, okay? You did something. So, like, you know, so he sort of gains a little bit of confidence and gives Tommy, like, it's okay, my strange friend. Like, people at least are getting something out of this. So I'm going to give him a fairly solid 1 at the end of the day for protagonist, in fact. And then I don't have anything else to add.
So Greg is perhaps one of the most uninteresting characters I've seen in a movie.
I mean, he's bland. I'll give you that, but still, go on.
That's the thing is, the manic pixie Frankenstein's monsters need a bland companion because you can't follow Tommy Wiseau.
Sure, you're right.
Perhaps I can identify with him, but few people can identify with a person that strange.
What journey would that be?
I guess they'll make a sequel, hopefully, but we'll make that movie ourselves.
But
let's get him on the horn.
People can identify with Greg, and that's his role in life. That's his journey. It's
sure.
So yeah, he serves his what is that? The neutral face. Thing very well.
Mr. Blankface, sure.
He does. Yeah, he does serve his purpose well. I don't know where I'm gonna put Tommy. He's like doesn't feel like a supporting character to me, but he doesn't necessarily feel like a protagonist either. He's definitely not the antagonist.
I knew you were gonna say that. How about this? Maybe this will help you out. A la like we did for Howard Beale in Network. Maybe not a 1-to-1 ratio, but he's maybe the most important by far, like secondary character. Yeah, but he's secondary to Greg's life in a sense. So,
but he is primary in Greg's life. Greg gives up literally everything at his like say so.
I understand. I'm trying to give you a framework for it.
Can't get him to leave his life.
Yeah.
It's almost like the cable guy.
But he doesn't like their relationship is so weird and like kind of strangely complex. Like he should fucking tell Wiseau to take a hike so many times throughout this movie and he doesn't. He has this really strange bond with this guy who's just a goddamn lunatic, like whirling dervish that upends his friggin' life.
Yes,
because he feels like he owes him something because he got him to start acting slightly better and he brought him to L.A. I think it's a more complicated relationship than it seems at first on the surface.
Sure,
and like kind of the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, what the hell? Like I don't. There are points where I don't understand what you were thinking when you did this, but it felt like something that he would do, like.
Yep, I get what you mean.
I'm gonna give Greg a 1.
Okay.
He certainly has an arc, and he does a decent job. You're right; he is the more boring of the two characters for sure, but that was always intended to be the case.
As I pointed out.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give protagonist 1.
And you come down with a 1.
And I guess we're going Wiseau.
We all gave 0 for antagonist and 1 for protagonist.
All right, just making sure that is correct. All right, so that's going to bring us to secondary with you, E.
Tommy Wiseau, again, playing the archetype of the manic pixie Frankenstein monster. It's cool. But I'm going to let you guys talk about him. I actually think this movie had a lot of great cameo appearances, and even some that were elevated to secondary. Seth Rogen did a great job, and he wasn't overused. He was just like had that perfect level of his kind of comedy in there as the script director,
the frustrated script director.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like seeing all these characters play people from the movie and getting to see the behind the scenes. I thought that it was a pretty strong supporting cast, probably stronger than the Room's cast there playing that cast. So I think overall, like I'm going to give it a pretty strong 1 actually, because I think that, and especially a lot of the comedy came from the secondary cast.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I agree with that. There were a lot of good cameos. And I'm going to forget people's names now. But the guy who played Andre in the League, I always forget his damn name. And
Rafi, too.
And I love him. Yeah, and Rafi from the League.
I only remember the character names.
So Jason Mantzoukas is Rafi. Paul Scheer, I just looked him up. Paul Scheer, that's his name. they both do a good job. Hannibal Buress is in there. They do a good job as like a little like side cameo. The part where he goes back and talks to Jason Mantzoukas' character, and they just have their little fucking aside conversation was pretty good, pretty funny, and you know there are a bunch of other stars here who I won't be able to remember them all, but I think those work pretty well, and I think that Franco did a really good job donning the guise of Tommy Wiseau. I mean, he fell into that character like crazy, and actually, kind of a funny story that this is probably the first time that a movie has ever been like directed by, like Franco was doing the directing as Tommy Wiseau.
Yes.
As he was doing this movie, which is great. And then they had like a behind the scenes documentary crew on the scene.
It's super meta for sure.
It's such a meta take on The Room in general, which I think is great. He regardless of what you thought of Wiseau's character in this or whatever, I think that he certainly put a shitload of work into it, and at least I appreciate seeing that come out on the
clearly added on to his legend.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I agree. It's funny because I was going to bring up the cast, like who was playing like the exasperated like cast and crew that was trying to help him, was being paid to make the movie with him. They're just like, God damn, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Yeah. But I mean, Odenkirk was another cameo. They had a lot of good ones, like you said. And yeah, like I think Franco did. He's not like fucking Gary Oldman or anything, but I think he did a pretty spot on job of like, you know, transforming himself, if you will, like doing a version that apparently, again, according to all accounts, is very close to the real life version of this person, and just trying to slip into his skin and portray the story of of how he came from wherever he came from to make a movie.
The same planet as Christopher Walken.
Yeah, sure,
probably.
So I'm giving secondary 1 though overall.
Yeah,
absolutely same.
Is everyone doing that? Alrighty. So now another good one. Going to be dialogue with you, Steve-O.
The dialogue in this movie is decent in places. I would say it's never like overwhelmingly great at any point. But it is good in places, and in other places it's just kind of mediocre.
It's perfectly fine.
Mundane. Yeah. But I do think at some parts they actively try to fit the dialogue to the like the beats of the room, how the room's dialogue works. I think they try to fit the dialogue in this movie to that at certain points, which I think was interesting. And you know, Tommy Wiseau's own like patter and the way that he talks to people. Supposedly this movie is very close to that. And you know, him in real life, and it's such a strange like manner of speaking. I don't know what it must be like to write his dialogue.
Sure,
but I can't imagine it's very easy. And I like the dialogue in this. It's going to be probably a soft 1, but I'll probably give it a 1 overall unless somebody gives me a real good reason not to.
Well, I was wavering on this one the most because, like I said, I agree. It was perfectly fine for like a lot of it, and yeah, I got some chuckles out of it. I did notice that I was going to say that for style, but I did notice like some of the interactions seem to be patterned off of like the way the room like cadence, I guess, is for lack of a better term. But like I thought it was written overall like decently. So I don't know. Well, like, I'll turn it over to you guys because I'm still wavering on it. I'm defaulting to a soft 1 like you are seeing, but I might be convinced otherwise. So you guys go ahead.
It was written like real dialogue. Like, just people going about their days.
People like, saying shit to people.
Yeah, it's like the only really, like, not groundbreaking, but like the only really extraordinary things that were said were just their reactions to the movie being filmed.
Sure. Yeah.
Which I wonder if they actually did, like, because everything that they said was just basically what everybody says when they're watching The Room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if, like, that actually went on behind the scenes. But
like maybe that was conversations close behind the set there. Yeah, go ahead.
That's the thing is, I don't know how much of the dialogue is winking right at the camera. Oh, this happened in the room. This person's going to say right here the same thing you said about it.
Where's the video? Where's the videotapes where are the videotapes of the documentary that Tommy Wiseau was filming about the room?
I would love to see that myself.
Apparently, Franco gave them to everybody that was in the crew of the fake movie on the Disaster Artist. Like, he gave them to everybody that was on the crew. So, like, Paul Scheer was talking. I was listening to him on a podcast. And he was like, "Yeah, we just watched 8 hours. Like, there was just an 8-hour tape of this like unedited garbage behind the scenes. Like, he was like, most of it was boring as hell, but like, you know, you got to see Tommy working and things like that.
So maybe they used that to like pattern his dialogue and stuff, but they still didn't get any facts or anything out of it.
I don't think they ever edited it. I think they just have like an 8-hour tape of shit.
All right.
But then you don't even know if that's real because he was still performing for the documentary.
Kind of.
It's super levels of meta, yeah. It's meta all the way down, Rich, obviously. So we're so all the way down, like we said.
He feeds off your meta angst.
Yeah. He's a vampire, but that's what sustains him. But yeah, I don't know, like, I think I might go with a default 1 for the dialogue at the end of the day.
I feel like if I don't give him a 1, he's going to like show up in my car.
Well, you know, like dialogue, Rich.
He might.
I have good words. So I don't know, like, I'm giving it a default soft 1 for now.
I liked a lot of the humor and then a lot of the jokes. I was laughing quite a bit through this.
Yeah. I'll give credit on that.
Give credit on that.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good call. There were a lot of well-written jokes.
1 for you, Steve-O, as well.
Yeah.
And Rich, good enough for a 1? All right, well, that will bring me to style. And, again, was it anything mind-blowing? No, because it wasn't that kind of movie, as we said. It's not trying to be that. But I think Franco did a competent job of, like, recreating what I imagine it was like making this movie and just composing his own movie that was perfectly fine. So, like, there's nothing standout per se. I may leave soundtrack to you, which there wasn't. There was one actually cool scene I thought that they used to a song that I like.
Yeah.
I'll save that if you want to talk about it. But I didn't really notice anything else, like, soundtrack-wise. But it was perfectly fine. Again, like, it's not quite a mockumentary, but it's not like a fucking, like, epic war movie film either. So it doesn't need to be, like, no, you don't looking for sweeping shots. You're just looking for, like, shots that work fine as people talk to each other in a bar or whatever. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So again, maybe a default fine 1, but there's nothing standout about it, but it was it was a perfectly competent, I guess I could say. So.
In a way, I think the closest genre it comes to is, kind of a biopic sort of, but not like a very limited, time frame. They do a good job of keeping you like they do have the, cards that appear showing you this is in May of whatever
98 or whatever it was. Yeah.
So you understand how much time has passed between events. I mean, it handles all of that business well enough. The day 52 out of 40 for
shooting. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
A good joke, but also keeps you like knowledgeable about like the time passing. Again, mind blowing. No. Did it do its job? Absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm saying.
Well, I guess I'm going to give a lot of credit in this movie to kind of having that method direction going on and Franco's method acting. I've noticed that we've mostly referred to his character as Tommy Wiseau and not James Franco as we usually do in these shows.
Sure, yeah.
Despite the fact that before 2 weeks ago, we probably all knew who James Franco was better than Tommy Wiseau, right? Before this started blowing, or maybe not 2 weeks ago, but fairly recently.
Certainly before we
he did really fall into this role. I got to give him a lot of credit for that. And I will say that the music was actually pretty good. There were several,
a bunch of it on the way home.
Yeah, there were several songs that I liked. I think the one you were mentioning was "Faith No More," epic. Yeah. They play at one point, which is a really good use of that. And at some points, it's a little bit understated, the music, but I think it still works pretty well throughout. It's something that I noticed a little bit more than some of the recent movies that we've been seeing. I don't think I've noticed the music as much, but this one, it popped out a little bit more.
I'll say, okay, so good. I don't know what more to add.
Yeah, I just also wanted to say that the attention to detail on the characters and how close they were to the characters in the room was really well done as well.
That's what I was going to add. Yeah. So it wasn't, I guess it was part of the film, but not the narrative per se, where they just had like shot for shot remakes of scenes from the original room and them doing their version, and they were pretty fucking spot on.
Yeah.
They, like you said, they got a lot of details, right? So I think that was an entertaining part of style, even though technically, like I said, wasn't part of the story.
Ari Grainer, who played Lisa, was the most spot on for all of those scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they all did a good job. But I'm giving it a pretty solid 1 on style. for all the fronts, you said.
Yeah, I agree.
You guys as well, Rich E? Yep. All right, and that's going to bring us to a recommendation with you, Rich. Do you recommend The Disaster Artist?
Yes, but only if you've seen The Room.
Well,
if you haven't, and you're going in there, I don't know why you're going to see this, but if you're a huge fan of James Franco and his brother Dave, and you want to see him make a biopic about this random movie that you possibly never heard of,
yeah.
I guess go for it, but you might end up like that old couple that sat in front of me and Ian that just disappeared 20, 30 minutes in.
They were written out of the film.
But yeah,
I like to think they went into another theater and saw a movie that was more to their taste.
Maybe, but I mean, that's the biggest qualifier that you have to attach to this movie. Like, yes, if you've seen The Room, you're probably going to like it. If you haven't, you'll be confused probably at best and be like, oh, James Franco plays a strange character. Like, you won't know it's really like why this is all happening. So I might, again, through no fault of it, that might mean I'm giving it a 0 because of that. Because you can only really see and you can only appreciate this movie for what it is if you've seen The Room and like are sort of one of those fans that the movie sometimes winks at you for. So
I would like to hear from somebody who hasn't seen The Room, because I'm not sure if I agree that this is not going to be an enjoyable movie unless you enjoy The Room. I
wouldn't say that it wouldn't be enjoyable.
I think you have to like The Room to like The Disaster Artist, but if you haven't seen The Room yet, but you're the type of person that would like it, I don't think you necessarily are not going to get The Disaster Artist.
So you think the fans of movies based off of true events would?
I think we're getting a little too deep. Basically what I'm saying is, if you're the type of person that would like The Room, I'm not sure, and I don't know this, I would like to hear from somebody who hasn't seen The Room yet and sees The Disaster Artist, but, has that type of sense of humor where they kind of get what's going on, like why it's fun, why people find this funny and that type of thing, and see if they enjoy this movie or not. And I have a feeling you guys might be right, but I'm not like that. You kind of need to see The Room first and be in the know. But I would like to hear from somebody, because we've all seen The Room. We just did a review on it, which is coming out.
Chris hasn't. Let's get him to watch The Disaster Artist.
There you go.
He'll be our own guinea pig, I guess. We can guinea pig him.
Terrible guinea pig.
I see what you mean, though, Steve. It would be interesting to like show someone with no knowledge and no previous watching The Room, show them this film, and like, what would you think as unto itself? Like, I get that, but I don't know. Like, I just feel as if you're not going to get clearly as much out of it if you haven't seen the original Room. So it's really weird. Like, I don't know.
I mean, what if you watch this and you're like, oh shit, now I got to see that Room movie, and then you watch The Room, and then it makes you want to watch this again.
Yeah, no,
like,
it's a good point. Yeah,
I don't know. I just don't know how people are going to react to it if they haven't seen The Room yet.
Fair enough. Well,
it's hard to tell.
I might switch to a 1 then. Just like, yeah, it's good, and if you like The Room, and then you'll like it even better, I suppose.
Oh, that's how you do it. So it's just like, hey, you should go see The Disaster Artist, or somebody asks you like, hey, have you seen The Disaster Artist? How was it? And like, first off, have you seen The Room?
Yeah.
You should go watch that and then watch this movie, or watch this movie and then go watch that.
They should show them as a double feature.
They really should.
From now on. Go ahead.
I wasn't the hugest fan of The Room. I enjoyed this movie, but I would never watch it again. Nor would I mean, if you're a diehard fan of The Room, you're probably going to go see this because you have that cult personality. I wouldn't recommend this to any average person to watch. And comedy-wise, or even mockumentary-wise, behind-the-scenes type stuff-wise, there's so much out there. So I'm going to give this a pretty strong 0 for recommendation.
Yeah, fair enough. Does that mean you're giving it a 1 to recommendation, though, Rich? Given what you just said? Okay. What about you, Steve-O?
I am going to give it a 1 for recommendation, specifically based on what I just said. I'm not sure that not having seen The Room or not enjoying The Room would necessarily mean... That's not true. If you don't enjoy The Room, you're not going to like this movie.
Right.
If you saw The Room and like hated it, you probably are not going to enjoy this. So if that's the case, don't go see it. But if you've seen The Room and liked it, you'll like this movie. If you haven't seen The Room, but you're the type of person that would like that very off the wall, surreal type of weird humor, then I don't know. I don't know if you'll like this movie without having seen that. But I would say give it a shot. Go see it and, report back to me. Let me know.
Yeah, I mean, I'll flip to a decent, solid one. Sure, check it out. Of course, everything we just said. If you haven't seen the room, you're going to get more out of it, and you'll enjoy it, especially if you're one of the, like you said, cult personalities who enjoys this kind of stuff. Then this movie is definitely for you. But I'm sure I can see it being entertaining, even if you haven't had any previous experience with its subject matter, I suppose. So yeah, you somewhat convinced me, so I'll give it some credit, because I think it deserves some decent, solid recognition for what Franco did with it. So I think that'll do it. Any final thoughts on anything we missed or anything to add? All right, I will give out scores now. Rich gave it Rich and Steve-O, you both gave it 9s. I ended up giving it an 8, and Ian is with lowest, of course, with a 6, which I don't know what that comes out to. I'm sorry.
Comes out to an 8, actually.
An 8 overall. Okay, well, there you go. Disaster Artist 8, and I think I might give it like a 7 or 8. Again, like outside the scale, like just arbitrarily assigning it a number. It's solid enough.
I'd give it a 6. It's better than average,
yeah.
but
nothing stand out. Yeah. Oh, well, fair enough then. Maybe you'll like the sequel when they make a sequel to The Room. They'll do a sequel to Disaster Artist. It'll be better.
Please help us. Don't.
Only if they get back.
That's the name of the
entire
sequel.
Cast.
Yeah, exactly. Reunited all together again. But I think that'll do it for tonight, gentlemen. Oh, got something, Rich?
They should do a
Idea time?
documentary of the Disaster Artist played by the actors that played their characters.
God, I'm not sure how much more meta.
Tommy Wiseau has to be James Franco playing Tommy Wiseau.
Well, I'd love to see that, and maybe we'll get them on the horn and make it ourselves. We'll ask Tommy Wiseau.
My head actually hurts from thinking about that.
We'll ask Tommy Wiseau from about $5 million or whatever the budget of it was, and see if we can make it happen. But I think until next time, I of course have been Scott Thurlow here with Rich Perry.
Have a good night,
Jane Manzer,
my head,
and Stephen Mosi.
Good night.
This has been Bon Mots. We've been doing Disaster Artists. See you next time.
Editing and engineering by Stephen Ramosi. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.